Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I've got myself and Keval and also Ali as well. We're going to be breaking down post-fight AJ versus Usyk. It wasn't lift-off for AJ. It was lift-off for Usyk instead this time. AJ not getting it done, not able to exact revenge over Oleksandr Usyk. It was repeat Usyk outboxing AJ. Again, AJ definitely putting in a valiant performance, and a performance which was much improved with the new trainer in his corner, and some bizarre goings on after the fight, which we'll talk about in a second as well. And I don't know, is it the end of his career? I don't think so, after the way he talked about it after the fight. And of course, what's next for both fighters. Before we get into that though, Keval, UK, you all good?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah. How are
you as well? You good?
I'm not too bad. I hope both of you have been well.
Yeah, all good. All good. All wearing black. We got the memo. So dark colours only. If anyone's watching on YouTube.
Yeah. And not just because of today's result.
Exactly, yeah. Dark colours and beards. But yeah, let's get into it. Cool. So first of all, I think, myself and Ali, I know we predicted Joshua. Keval, you did predict Usyk, and I know when we were watching it together, you said draw, which, to be fair, you weren't too far off. If one round was given to AJ, it would have been a draw. And the scorecards in the end, I think, for me, were a little bit surprising because I was saying to you off air, Keval, that I thought it was, I could see why it might be at a push, a draw, but I couldn't see an AJ win. I couldn't see like 2 rounds going to AJ that were Usyk, for example, but I could see why like Usyk won, and I think I would edge it towards him. But one of the judges gave it to Joshua, 115, 113, 116, 112 to Usyk, and 115, 113 to Usyk as well. So I think, in the end, it was a split decision, and probably the right person won. Well, I think the right person did win in Oleksandr Usyk. I mean, he just moves so light on his feet. He moves like someone who isn't a heavyweight, more like a middleweight or a welterweight. And it's incredible to see. His engine is unbelievable. And I think Joshua he looked so conditioned, so fit. But after that 9th round where he kind of almost gassed himself out by chasing Usyk around the ring, because he knew that he'd hurt him a little bit, and it didn't manage to kind of land anything of note after the first couple of punches because Usyk was so elusive. I think it took a lot out of him, and then Usyk just went through the gears somehow after that for the last few rounds, and I think nicked it because of that. He took the last 3 rounds, right? When I think it was very close before that, went potentially even AJ up by maybe 1 round. I'll go to you first, Kev. I mean, what were your thoughts on the fight in terms of how it went? Were you maybe thinking, okay, well, AJ put in a pretty good performance? I've heard some people saying that they maybe think Joshua should have gone for it more. I mean, I don't know how much more he could have given, honestly, but almost saying that maybe he could have just gone in and just charged him. But I guess that's when you then get countered, right, and you get hurt. But were you impressed with him and his chin as well? I guess he was a fair bit of punishment, and also the way he boxed. And were you impressed with Usyk, or do you think actually, you know what, Usyk boxed pretty well, but it was just a case of AJ just not good enough to beat someone like an Usyk who's just too elite?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree to say that AJ definitely upped his game from the first fight. He was definitely a lot more conditioned. He didn't sort of fully gas out at the end, and his skill was a lot better than in the first fight. Obviously, as you can imagine, Usyk also upped his game because he knew that AJ is going to come in a little bit sharper. And I think it was a bit of a chess game, as some people have called it, because I think, at the start, I think Usyk was winning the rounds, but then AJ took over and he won a few in the middle. But then he made a mistake that he's made this mistake a few times in his career, where he tries to knock his opponent out and then kind of gasses out. He's done that to Klitschko, which he almost got knocked out in himself. He kind of did that to Andy Ruiz in the first fight. And he made a similar mistake again here, where he tried to knock out Usyk, and then it was noticeable that he gassed out, which allowed Usyk to steal those rounds after that big flurry. And I think that was AJ's mistake of not sort of boxing like he should have, maybe. But with that being said, I think they both put on a great performance, and it was, I'm glad that they both sort of stepped up and fought better than the first fight. And I still think the best person won, which was Usyk.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it was definitely a great fight. It was a lot more technical than the fight that we saw before that, which was a lot slower, but more of a slugfest in Hrgovic Zhang, which is on the card before. But it was definitely entertaining, and I agree. I think maybe in that round, he definitely hurt Usyk. I think it was a body shot or a couple of body shots, and Usyk, I think, kind of grimaced, and that AJ smelt the blood, and he tried to channel his killer instinct, which he's maybe missed for a couple of fights, and me and Ali talked about it. But I agree. I think maybe he got a little bit excited and kind of chased him around the ring and didn't really land much. I know Ali and Muhammad, who were watching with us, obviously we were all watching it, were saying, after the first couple of punches, not really much was landing. He was either missing because Usyk was being so good, he was so elusive, kind of just ducking back or leaning back, even, or just catching it on his gloves. So I think generally he was doing, he was doing really, really well with that Usyk. And it took a little bit out of him, but it took more out of AJ, and he was very, very clever in the way that he did it. Maybe AJ could have been a bit more, I guess, measured in that. Once he knew it was hurt, fine, try and stay active, but try not to overdo it. And I think after the first few combinations, when he knew it wasn't landing, and he would have known that, he should have just said, okay, let me just take a second, take a step back and try and set up traps. But I think for AJ, what he was probably thinking is, I've barely been able to get a look into Usyk's defense, like all fight, apart from the body shots. Really, he's probably thinking, I haven't really had an opportunity to potentially to floor him, to knock him out. That was an opportunity, and I think what happened is he just wants to make the most out of it, and I get that. But maybe it was just the case of that Usyk was just too good, and he's just too elusive, and you just can't tag him like that. And maybe Joshua just doesn't have the hand speed to really trouble Usyk, because he's just so good movement wise. But agreed on all points, and I think he was definitely better conditioned. I mean, his chin held up really well, to be fair, and I was impressed with his head movement. Like, I know, Ali, when we were watching it, you were saying the same thing. I thought his head movement was a lot better. He was evading a lot of shots with just his head and upper body movement, and also with his hands as well. I was impressed with the way that he was blocking as well. And a lot of the shots that Usyk were throwing in flurries, some of them were definitely landing, but Joshua was able to also catch them on the gloves, which I thought in the first fight he struggled to do. And Usyk had a lot more spots in flurries in the first fight where he had success. This time it wasn't really the case. And obviously AJ managed to hurt him, I think, to the body a couple of times as well, which was a positive sign. And it's one of those things that it feels like a 15-round fight. You think, oh, maybe AJ can go on and win and knock him out. But at the same time, you need to have the tank. And I mean, apart from someone like an Usyk and maybe a Fury, no one's got that tank. AJ is superiorly fit, but I just feel like maybe it's a more natural and genetic thing, and he just doesn't quite have it in him. He's just too muscle bound, or I don't know what it is, but he's slimmed down. He's clearly an incredible athlete, but maybe it was just that one step too far. Ali, what were your thoughts on the fight? Because we both backed AJ. Were you surprised with where it went? Do you think AJ's performance was good and Usyk just too good on the night, or could AJ have done more?
I mean, I'll be honest, man. I don't know where to start. I'm still upset by the whole spectacle from start to the end, and the end of the end of the end. But okay, let's get into the actual fight itself. I think credit has to be given where credit is due. Usyk is an outstanding fighter, outstanding world champion. I think in terms of Joshua fought. He improved dramatically from the first fight. He was really going into it. He was, I mean, the first fight, the best, I mean, I'll describe it in 2 words: sitting duck. The first fight, he was very much a sitting duck. He wasn't as active as he should have been. Second fight, he's learned from those mistakes, and we've all, agree in unison that he has been able to apply that, or learn the mistakes from the first fight and apply the lessons into the second fight. And he was more going into it. I noticed there were times when Usyk was catching him, with 2-3 hits. I mean, but AJ would go in for a body shot. So AJ would go in for a body shot. He would take 2-3 hits, but he would still land that body shot. And we could see that Usyk hated it. So I think, like Kev said, or I think you said a few moments ago, that it was like a game of chess. So I think AJ was taking about 3 hits just to land one of his. But he knew, well, in fact, I think both fighters knew that by AJ landing just one body shot, it would, in the long term, work in his favor. It would eventually compound, work towards AJ's favor. I think AJ, like you said, he was moving his head a lot more. He was dodging a lot, and I think that was a huge improvement, and that's a credit to his decision to change coaches. I mean, Usyk, the way, I mean, AJ was, in terms of fitness wise, I would say he was doing quite well for most of the fight, maybe 9-10 rounds. Last 2-3 rounds, he just suddenly dropped. And even I had to turn around and I told you, like, how's he just suddenly dropped?
Was that round, wasn't it, where he chased him?
I think it was round 10, yes, because round 9, if I'm not mistaken,
that's
it's the
when
one where he had the flurries and everyone was going, ooh.
Yep.
But till me and Mo, we realized, said, no, maybe, because he missed quite a few of those hits in that flurry. After that round, that's when his fitness dropped dramatically. And I'll always say this, had AJ gone for it in the championship rounds 10 and 11, even 10, 11, and 12, I think he would have got the decision go his way. As controversial as that may have been, it would have gone his way because one judge gave it to him 15-13, right? So if AJ applied himself in the final 2-3 rounds, he'd be up 2-3 points and Usyk would be down 2-3 points. Similarly, with the other judges who gave him in favor of Usyk, was it 116-112, right?
Yeah.
So if you take away those,
so one would have been like a draw and one would have win. He would have won a majority decision.
AJ
would have won a majority decision. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I think, as controversial as the decision, I'll repeat this, as controversial as the decision would have been, had AJ applied himself in the final 2-3 rounds and really gone for the kill, especially in the championship rounds, I think he would have got the decision.
No, I agree. I think after that round 9, so what, 10, 11, 12, so 3 rounds. I mean, he wins the last few rounds and he wins the fight, and that's a big portion of the fight. Right? It's a quarter of the fight. The last 3 rounds, the championship rounds are crucial as well. The last things in the judges' mind. I mean, they're not going to go back obviously and change their scores from previous rounds. Well, you'd hope so, but for you never know nowadays. But with Usyk, I think it was just a case of he just had the tank, and he somehow has this incredible knack to last so long, and not just last so long, but also get through the gears as well. Go through the gears and actually raise his level when he needs to. And I think he almost gained confidence when he saw Joshua after the 9th round kind of tire a little bit and was like, oh, okay. And you could see in spurts he was a little bit tired, but he's clever. He took 10, 15 seconds off in rounds and then fought, and then took a couple of 10 seconds off and then fought. AJ, I think, was just done. He was done. And I know what you're saying. If he'd applied himself better, I just don't think he had it in him. I just think he did the best he could. He did the best he could. He made an interesting point after the fight, which maybe I'm reading too much into it, but he said that,
he's heavy.
He wasn't. Yeah, he said he was heavy, but it wasn't even that. It was in the post-fight. We'll get into that heavy bit actually after that's part of the aftermath. But he said that he trained a lot for the fight, right? Like he basically just put it all out in the gym. And interestingly, he said, I could have done a bit better in the ring on the night in the fight, but I left it all in the gym. So what I think he might have been alluding to is that he potentially overtrained a little bit, which can happen where you overtrain, so you train too much before a fight, and so then physically and mentally, when you get into the ring, you can gas out earlier because you haven't peaked at the right time. You haven't peaked in the right time, because what the camp is supposed to do is, you train hard, but you're supposed to time it so that when you get into the ring, you're at a peak conditioning, so you can go 12 rounds. You're at the fittest you've ever been, right? He's saying that maybe, maybe I'm reading too much into it because he only said one thing about it, but it just kind of played on my mind a little bit to think, oh, maybe that happened, that he maybe peaked just before the fight, and then maybe he realized that in camp, and then it's almost like it's too late. He's with a new training team as well, so it can be hard to sometimes figure those things out. And it was hard for Robert Garcia to suddenly just get thrown into the deep end against a pound for pound great. I mean, he's going to go down as a great Usyk. He will go down as pound for pound one of the best fighters ever. I'm telling you now, he will. He might. Even if he loses to Usyk, it doesn't matter, because think about it. At cruiserweight, undisputed, right? He went to everyone's backyards and beat them. He hasn't fought anyone at home. He's gone into their backyards and beaten them. So he'll go down. He'll go down, even if it's just as a cruiserweight. He will. But he apart from himself and Evander Holyfield, David Hay, which I don't really want to talk about David Hay because he's a WBA regular. But let's just say he's in the esteemed company of Evander Holyfield as a cruiserweight who's, won the world titles at cruiserweight and then gone up to heavyweight and done the same. And he is no joke, right? This guy is legit. So who knows? Maybe Fury beats him, and we'll talk about that in a bit as well. But he is an elite boxer, and I'm not saying that he's Muhammad Ali, but I'm saying that he is going to go down in the Hall of Fame. That's what I'm saying. He is going to go down as a great because he is a great boxer, and he showed it. I think after all the adjustments Joshua made and improvements, he's still too good. And I think that was what was incredible about it. But yeah, I mean, his footwork we're talking about, obviously, when we're watching it together, that, he had ballet lessons and you could see that dancing around the ring, the movement, he's constantly moving. I mean, how many other heavyweights do that, can constantly move around the ring like that? Even Fury doesn't do that. Yeah, he's light on his feet, but Usyk is just constantly pivoting, moving, feinting. Okay, the southpaw, the southpaw stance has its own, I guess, nuance to it as well. But as a fighter, I think the hand speed, the accuracy of the punches, the intelligence, just everything, the package. The only thing that you might say he doesn't have is one punch knockout power.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing. Everything else he's got.
Yeah.
And you might say, oh, well, actually, maybe Fury's got size. You don't necessarily need to be big because, you don't need to be. 6'3" is big enough. He's not as small as people think. He'd put on lean muscle mass as well. We saw he's a similar weight, but he just put on muscle. He put on muscle, but in the right way. He is now a fully fledged heavyweight. I know we're a little bit short of time as well, so let's touch upon the aftermath then. So obviously, Usyk wins, and everyone's like, okay, fine, right decision. Joshua has a little bit of a breakdown, I guess we can call it. And, I'm not going to completely describe what happened because if you haven't watched it, you can go and watch it yourselves. If you're listening and watching as well here, you can watch yourselves and then come back and see what we're referencing to, but I'm sure you've seen it. I actually watched it from, so on Sky Sports, they've got a 6-minute clip and it literally shows from, I put it in the group. I don't know if you guys watched it.
I watched it,
yeah. It literally shows from as soon as the fight ends, it follows AJ throughout, because what happened is when we were watching it live, the cameras kept on panning on and off him, right? So we didn't really know what was going on. So obviously what happened is he was a bit annoyed and talking to the team and whatever, and he told to Loma, Lomachenko, that, look, it's fine to be a good fighter, but basically F that. I want to win, clean that winning mentality. And Usyk said the same thing, you're a strong fighter, blah, blah. And I think this got misconstrued, this got misunderstood. What he said to Usyk was that being strong doesn't mean anything. He said it's about skills, and he said, how do I lose to you? You're not strong. But what he said is, how do you beat me? You beat me because you're more skilled. Yeah. And on that 6-minute clip, you see it. He says it's because you beat me with skills. You're more skilled. He said, I've got heart, I've got determination, but you're more skilled. So he said, and that's why you won. It's not about being strong. And I think that's what he's got. He's got this winning mentality. Doesn't matter. I can be as big, as muscular as I want. That's fine, but I want to win. And I think he was just annoyed himself. He clearly has a lot of pressure on him. And, I think this is going to be a tough loss to swallow, because Andy Ruiz, he lost to him. He came back and he avenged it. That doesn't matter. That's kind of almost like it's cancelled out to me. I know a lot of people say put a lot of importance. For me, it doesn't. He avenged it. Doesn't matter. It can happen. You can lose. Look at all the great heavyweights they have. The Usyk one, though, will hurt because the scorecards were close. Maybe they were too close. I don't know. A lot of people will say that. But the fact that he made so many improvements, the fact that he managed to box a lot better and still lose, that's what will hurt him. The fact that he's like, I've given my all and I've still lost to this guy. He's just too good. And that will hurt his ego. And of course, all of these guys are egotistical. They've been at the top of the game, especially AJ. And he's fought contender after contender after contender in stadium. Everyone that's been put in front of him, he said, yeah, I'll fight them. So, to lose into this guy twice in a row is going to hurt. And I think that's just what we saw. We saw someone who's emotionally devastated. A lot of people said he might even be concussed. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I guess we won't know. And in the post-fight as well, obviously he broke down in tears. He just said, look, I'm upset. He said, and he basically couldn't say that he was proud of himself because he was just he just wanted to win. He's got winner's mentality. I think that's a positive thing. Now, not giving Usyk the moment is wrong, and I'll ask you guys about that as well. And I think what happened is he didn't give Usyk the moment because he was annoyed. He obviously went out the ring because he was just. I think he was just basically pissed off. Really, he wasn't happy at all with losing, and then just in his head, he was like, you know what, I'm going to say something stupid. So he walked out the ring. Then he came back in because he said that in the post fight. He came back into the ring, obviously, and just said a bit of waffle, really, which is a bit crazy. It was with good intentions, you could tell, but it was just a bit awkward. And Usyk was like, "Give me back my Ukraine flag," because it was just really kind of weird. Like it was just strange. Obviously, kind of stole the moment a little bit of the limelight, and then obviously had the post fight, presser where he was. Yeah, like I think that was much better, like the way he spoke and everything. I think it's because he had time to kind of just settle down and talk kind of from the heart. But that was really bizarre. So let's get your guys' take on it. I guess we'll go to you first. I mean, what are your thoughts of the aftermath?
So I do agree. I felt like it was disrespectful from Joshua to kind of just take the limelight. But when I watched the 6-minute clip that you showed, like you posted in the group, when I watched that, am I right to say that those two belts that he threw out of the ring?
Yeah.
Were they Usyk's belts that he picked up? And
He chucked the WBA belt and the Ring Magazine belts. The Ring Magazine belt was on the line as well. So I think what happened is he was like F these belts basically. And I think there's obviously been a lot of pent up frustration. He didn't do it because he was Usyk's belts. I think he just did it because he was just like, I think he was trying to say like F these organizations. And really? I think
but they're his belts though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think his biggest frustration might be as well, and he didn't say it, and he won't say it because then he might not be able to fight under those belts or for those belts again. Is that I think he's wanted to fight Wilder and also Fury for a long time, and it hasn't happened for whatever reason. Yeah. I think he even said after, like, he wanted to give the British fans himself versus Fury, and he knew that if he won, 99% like certainty that most likely he was going to fight Fury.
Yeah.
And it would have been huge. And he was so upset, and that was like an added pressure as well. But I think the pressure just got to him, and understandably, I just think it was like everything kind of came at the wrong time. It was a perfect storm for him.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it could have been a lot worse than it was. I think he kind of maybe his team should have as well held him back, and a lot of people said, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the pressure that he went through, especially with the loss and the emotions, but I still don't agree that he should have done that because, like, he is a world level fighter, and I think, a world level fighter who's had however many professional fights in his career. This is something that he should be used to, and he knows the rules after the fight. It's like, the winner sort of speaks first because they've just won. He's won enough matches to know that. Every time AJ won, he always was the first to talk, first at the mic, and he should have accepted the loss and not cause a tantrum. I felt like he almost started on one of Usyk's team because if you watch that 6-minute clip closely, he almost like barged one of Usyk's team, or after he threw the belt out, somebody from Usyk's team was talking to him, almost like saying, "Why did you do that?" And then that's when AJ was getting really angry, and his team were holding him back.
He was like, "Don't F with me."
Yeah. It's like if you watch that, it's like, but AJ is the one that started the beef. Now he's getting mad. It's like, this is really weird. And then I felt like when he stormed off, he felt he had to justify himself, so he had to come back, do this speech, which kind of was very irrelevant, bringing in the civil war and all that, which I get what he was trying to do, but I don't think that was a time and the place to be bringing that up. I think it was literally a case of give Usyk the mic, it's his turn, it's his victory. But
agreed. No, I agree. I don't think I'm definitely not condemning his actions. I just think I can understand why it happened, but it's definitely not right. I think, and that's why you apologize after, right, on social media, for sure. Ali, what's your thoughts? And then we can wrap up.
I think what Joshua did was extremely disrespectful and not something that I expected of him at all. It's completely out of character for him. I think the dashing the belts was extremely beyond disrespectful. I mean, that's something I would expect from a hoodlum. So something I expect from
Adrian Broner.
Not even Adrian Broner, someone else, but never Joshua. I can understand you'd be frustrated, but not to the point where you throw the belts, you bring the sport into disrepute. You further take a hit to your reputation. Having said that, I do think the pressure got to him. I mean, I hope I'm wrong in saying this, but I think he had some sort of mental breakdown or some sort of a breakdown of some sort. I mean, like you said, most likely it's the pent up frustration, the anger. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm yet to see the 6-minute clip, so maybe my view of that will change. But I'm not sure if you guys saw when he was after all of that debacle finished, and they were going into the changing rooms. Joshua was smiling. Then someone says, "Keep it professional, keep it professional," and Joshua flips out. He said, "Who the
Yeah,
hell?"
So you know who that was? That was the ref. That was the referee.
That wasn't the ref, I think.
No, it was not for his fight, for all the other fights. And you know what? That was unprofessional from him because he set him up.
Yeah, I agree.
He did it on purpose. Why is he heckling him for? He's working for he's working at the event. That was the most stupid thing to do. But AJ flipped out because he knew he was going to flip out.
Exactly.
He did it on purpose because he wanted.
I thought he was a fan. I thought it was a fan just asking for trouble. If it turns out it was one of the refs from the previous fights,
yeah, he was.
Then without doubt, it's disrespectful. And the guy afterwards, he looked smug about it. Extremely
Is this that really sweaty referee? Sorry, just that one.
Yeah,
him.
Okay.
And he triggered.
I think he got changed. I think he was wearing like a black t-shirt.
He basically said to him, so Aiden's walking past, going back to the changing room, and he basically shouts like, "Keep it professional," because of what happened, like in the ring and stuff. I'm just like, you're a referee.
That is a fair thing to say.
No, but Kev, it's a fair thing to say if you're not working at the event. He's working at the event. It's not his place to say it, and he's heckled him on purpose because he knows that it's going to set him off. So he's done it on
even
purpose.
Even if he wasn't working in the event, even as a fan, that's not something you want to do considering the circumstances.
No, but a fan is a fan. You can't control them, right? But he's working at the event. He's been paid to be there. He shouldn't be doing that because what he's done is he's basically just sabotaged it, and it's just like it's just ridiculous. I just couldn't believe what he was saying. But
I agree.
But of course, like we're all in agreement that like what he did wasn't right, and he clearly knew it wasn't right because after he said in the post fight, he also said it in a social media post as well. Look, he's also a role model for a lot of people. I'm not to say that he's gone. Cool.
I was about. Oh, sorry.
You go. No, go on, Ali.
No. You first.
I was just gonna say. I know it wasn't the referee's place to say it, but that is. If he was refereeing the match, referees always do say keep it professional in the match. Now I know it wasn't him refereeing that specific one, but he probably felt the need to sort of still be in referee zone and say that, which is the only reason I'd say he may have felt the urge to say something like that.
He did it because he wanted to be famous and on camera, and that's exactly what happened. I think.
You really think so?
100%, 100%. Because that's exactly what happened. I think he knew what he was doing. In a way, I don't think he did it because he had AJ's best interests at heart at all. I agree. Think because you don't think that his team's going to go back to even his team were talking. You could see they were talking to him when he was going back to the ring. They would have talked to him in the change room. He got asked about it in the post fight. I mean, he knows that's going to happen. He just did it because he wanted a bit of limelight. But I mean, look, AJ's
AJ shouldn't have acted like that just from
agreed.
That.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, yeah, but. I mean, it was that. I mean, at that point, it's going to happen because he's just been set off already, right? So, that's not surprising. But yeah, like he's a role model for quite a few people as well. So he'll know that, which is why I think he's come out and apologized because a lot of people do look up to him. Like we were talking about Lawrence Okoli, right? Lawrence Okoli was in McDonald's working. He said himself, I can quote him because he said it himself, that he was obese, he was working in McDonald's. He saw Anthony Joshua on the TV win the Olympic gold medal talk, and he said, you know what? I'm inspired. I want to be like him, and now he's world champion. So, if he wants to inspire other people, that can't be a regular occurrence. This has got to be a one-off anomaly. But yeah, we'll leave it there anyway. I don't want to go on too long. We can talk about AJ and what's next for AJ Usyk and maybe the Fury Usyk kind of debacle not debacle, but saga after Fury also posted about AJ another day as well because his retirement didn't last very long. But yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Kevin and Ali as always.
Thanks a lot, man.
No worries. Guys, remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new as well. And we'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.